What's up everybody, it's Carl, aka Carl Drum Tech, and today let's talk about biased instructors and directors and section leaders and what you can do about it. Cue the music. Alright, if you guys are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's a red button down below that says subscribe. That way you are notified anytime I drop a new video in regards to marching arts, marching bands, drum lines, indoor percussion, drum corps, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single upload. Make sure that notification bell is ringing. That way you are the first to be notified anytime I drop a new video. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and let's get to the video. Okay, so what do you do in situations where you have a biased instructor or a biased director or a biased session leader, whereas like this individual gives certain people, certain members in the drumline or marching band preferential treatment? Okay, so like they get, you know, like all the awards, they get all the session leader positions, they get just special preferential treatment, like, you know, they can get away with stuff, they don't get punished for things that they do wrong, and it's like, what the heck, that's not fair. Okay, so now in the real world or in the corporate world, in those situations you would probably complain to HR. What is HR? HR is human resources, and they're the ones who are in charge of making sure that, you know, everybody's treated fairly. Okay, and you can air your grievances to HR and say, hey, my boss is giving so-and-so employee preferential treatment, they get away with stuff, they don't get punished, they get more raises, or they, you know, they just you know, like they get more like promotions and all that good stuff, right? And like everybody else is like, what the heck, like, you know, we're not chosen for anything, we're not, you know, given any kind of, you know, like special treatment or anything like that, so that's not fair. Okay, now in those situations, yes, that is definitely not fair. It is definitely fair to complain to HR in those situations, and it's HR's job to try to manage and make sure that supervisors are not giving preferential treatment. Everybody should be treated fairly, everybody should be treated equally, right? Now, in a marching band or drumline situation, do you have an HR? Is there such thing as an HR? Yes, it is called, you know, the authority figures above the accused. Okay, so if you're accusing your instructor or your director of being biased and being, you know, giving people preferential treatment, this is something where you can talk to, you know, like for example, if it's a drum instructor, you know, giving biased, you know, like preferential treatment to others, you can complain to the director and say, hey, I think so-and-so is, you know, like favoring this person because of this and this and this. And you would list all the reasons why you think that way, okay? Now, if it's a director, right, you go above them. So who would be above the director? So you go to the principal, right? So you always want to go a step above, right? And then obviously you have to have something that backs up your claim. I mean, you can't just accuse somebody without any kind of proof, right? And what is the goal of that, right? The goal is to just make sure that everybody is treated fairly. You're not trying to get anybody in trouble. You're not trying to be, you know, you're not mad because you didn't get a position that you wanted and you want to get back at them, so you're like, you know, what the heck, like, you know, I'm not being treated fairly. Like, you know, you don't want to do something like that. You want to be able to show that there's actual bias going on, that there's actual preferential treatment that's unfair, right, that's happening, and you want to bring that to light so that everybody gets treated fairly. Does that make sense, right? So it has to be in the interest of you're trying to make the group better and not just like because you didn't get what you wanted. Does that make sense? Okay, just I want to put that out there. Okay, you don't want to just start blindly accusing people because you didn't get what you wanted. Now, if you have an actual reason to say what you're saying, to say that, you know, there are instances where you feel like your instructor or your director or your section leader is being biased, then you definitely want to bring that up to make sure that everybody is treated fairly. Okay, that I truly believe that. Now, are there situations where this happens? Yes, of course it happens, right? It's happened to me during my experience. Like, you know, there was a situation where, you know, like it was my senior year. There was more qualified individuals like myself, another person who might have been older, and then the director chose somebody in our line who we didn't feel like was qualified to be a session leader, and they chose them. And I think a lot of it maybe had to do with the fact that the parents put in a lot of money to the program. Okay, so maybe there's a way to placate and play politics and make sure that, you know, the parent is happy, right, for all the donations that they've been giving. Now, is that fair? Probably not, right? Because, you know, it should be based on merit, not based on contributions. But at the same time, it's like, well, this parent like really helped out with the health of the organization. Like, if it wasn't for them, maybe we wouldn't have as much cool stuff, right? So it's like, you know, at the end of the day, you also have to understand that like there's a lot of politics that goes on that's very important that maybe you don't quite understand, right? It's like, on the one hand, yeah, it is like, you know, it's better if everybody's treated fairly based on merit, yes, but you have to look at it from a human perspective, right? like I still look back at it and go, you know what, I kind of don't blame the director, okay, because you know, you have to play politics sometimes. You have to placate certain individuals to make sure that the overall health of the group is like benefits from it. Does that make sense, right? So maybe you have to kind of like, you know, bend the rules a little bit. Maybe you have to bend, you know, fairness a little bit, and that's just gonna happen. That's the way of life. That's how the world works. There's things that are not fair that happens, and I wish I could say that everything is always fair or that life is fair, but unfortunately life is not fair, okay? I've been in corporate situations where, you know, things happen unfairly, okay? And things happen because of politics. Like, I got fired before because of politics, just because it's not because of my performance, it's not because I've made mistakes, but it's because of politics. Like, do you choose the employee like myself, or do you choose the real estate agent that makes like hundreds of thousands of dollars for the company, right? And it's like, and if that person doesn't like me, the person who makes a shit ton of money, right? If they don't like me, like, who are they gonna choose, right? It just makes sense. It's not fair, but it makes sense, right? It's like, you know, you want to choose the person who, you know, makes the company a lot of money. I get that, okay? But, you know, hey, it's not fair. And I wish I could say, you know what, like, everything should be fair. It should be based on merit, but that's just not how it is. So you kind of have to understand the bigger picture of things. And, you know, like, and sometimes, yeah, life isn't fair. So what do you do, right? You can just do as the best you can, which is, like I said, you can go to HR, right? In your situation, you go to the higher ups, right? Go above the instructor, go above the director, go above the section leader, and just say, hey, I have a concern about, you know, so-and-so giving preferential treatment, or they're being biased, or, you know, like, certain individuals are not being punished because the director or the instructor or the director likes them more, okay? You can point those things out and just, you know, have, like, you know, a list of things to document why you think that is happening, okay? But otherwise, what else can you do? Well, not much. There's not much else you can do. And like I said, sometimes life isn't fair, and you have to find ways to still thrive and succeed despite the fact that things aren't fair, okay? All right, let's talk about basic double stroke technique for things like rolls. Now, when you first learn a double stroke, you think of it as right, right, left, left. So you're sticking each note, you're responsible for each stroke. When you play it fast, you think of it more as a bounce. Now, when you're going slow to fast, you want to use a little bit more bounce as you go from slow to fast. And if you're going the other way, you want to use more of the sticking as you go slower. The interesting thing is there's a middle point, there's a middle tempo where you use equal amounts of both. So experiment with that and see where that happens, and have fun playing and working on some rolls. So for one, you know, if you feel like an individual is prone to give preferential treatment, maybe because, you know, they like certain individuals better, right? So what do? Well, you can, like, you know, I don't want to say kiss butt, but you kind of have to, right? It's like you got to play the game, you got to play the politics, right? You got to, like, talk to, like, be friends with the instructor, right? Like, you know, compliment them, thank them so much for all the stuff that you're doing. I mean, if you just come in, you're just some Joe Schmo, and you're not being thankful, you're not, like, acknowledging the work that the instructor does, and you just go in there and you're like, you're not like socializing, you're not doing any of that stuff. Well, then of course maybe the instructor's not going to notice you as much. Does that make sense, right? And maybe, you know, your playing isn't enough, okay? You have to do some extra things, and that is something that you have to consider, okay? This is not something that people like to talk about. This is not something that people want to say, well, yeah, you should definitely do that. But I will tell you that this is the truth of the world. This is how the world works. Sometimes you have to do things that is, like, not fair. Sometimes you have to do things that is, like, you know, playing politics or kissing butt. Like, sorry, this is the way of the world. Like, I can't tell you that, like, well, everything's gonna change, and, you know, like, if you just go by merit, everything's gonna be fine. It doesn't work like that, okay? So you have to find ways to thrive and succeed despite all the obstacles, despite the fact that life isn't fair, okay? And if things don't go your way, okay, and you know, maybe you get you don't get what you want, you don't succeed because of, you know, bias, and you're not getting preferential treatment, well, take that as a learning situation. Like, what can you do to learn from that situation? What can you do to motivate yourself to be even more successful? To, you know, maybe like after Drumline, like, you know, how can you succeed in the world? How can you succeed in a professional environment? How can you succeed in social situations where, you know, like, okay, I didn't succeed in this situation, but maybe I can learn how to play politics a little bit better next time. Maybe I can learn how to, you know, be more social and, like, you know, be on the good side of people in power. Does that make sense, right? That's all that stuff is so important. And you know, like making friends and like making connections, networking, all that good stuff, like that's all important. That happens in the marching arts activity, that happens in the drumline world, and this definitely happens in the real world. So you definitely want to start preparing for it, okay, by learning that in your current social situation right now, which is drumline, marching band, and the activity itself. Does that make sense? Okay, so guys, this is not something that most people talk about, but you know, I think it's something that's very important because this is the kind of thing that happens in the real world. Like, you know, preferential treatment, unfair situations, this happens in life. And I'm just trying to kind of like, you know, prepare you guys for what you might see in the real world once you go outside of your little bubble called the marching arts. Okay, so cool. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you got something out of it, hopefully you learned something from it. And if you did, do me a huge favor and hit that like button down below. And if you have any questions or comments, would like to add to the conversation, leave that in the comments as well down below. And if you have not subscribed yet, after I told you to subscribe, make sure you hit that red button down below that says subscribe. That way you're notified anytime I put out a new video, okay? So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You guys should totally watch more of my videos by clicking over here and subscribe over here. Peace out. Catch you guys on the next video.